Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel. Today we are jumping into the Jaclyn Hill Morphe Vault collection. Today's video is all about the Ring the Alarm palette. I've decided I'm going to do like a little series on my channel so I can really go in depth on each of the palettes. I'm going to create 4 videos focusing on each of the 4 palettes. I'm going to create 2 looks using each of the palettes, a review and also swatches, so I can really go in depth and you can work out whether or not you want to spend money on the entire collection or whether you want to only pick up a few of the palettes. So today's video is all about the Ring the Alarm palette, so make sure you don't forget to subscribe down below so you don't miss out on any of my other videos on the Jaclyn Hill Vault collection, and let's just jump right into it. So guys, like I said, I did pick up the entire Vault collection. It retails for $75 on the Australian Morphe site. The collection comes with the 4 palettes. Individually, they are sold at $23 per palette. Now, Morphe does also have really great shipping rates now for the Australian site. If you spend over $60, the shipping is free, so you're not paying anything on shipping, which I love. So $75 for the 4 palettes is a really great deal. So like I said, for today's video, we're focusing on the Ring the Alarm palette, but basically this is what the packaging looks like. It comes in just a white box with the normal Jaclyn Hill logo on it. When you open it up, this is what it actually looks like. So you have this little tab here which you can pull, and you can pull out the palettes. Every palette looks very similar, just has this kind of look, but it does, I will turn down the exposure, but each palette, to identify it, has each coloring. So this one is the Dark Magic one, so you can see the confetti is a kind of like dark greeny kind of color, so each palette has representative confetti to the kind of color of that palette, if that makes sense. So for today's video, we are focusing on the Ring the Alarm, and this is what it looks like. Just comes in the same packaging as all of the other ones. It has the Ring the Alarm detailing on the side spine here, so when they're all in the vault you can tell which palette is which, and this is what the palette looks like. It comes with a mirror, and then these are the shades here. So now we're going to jump into the swatches. So the basic premise behind the Vault collection is that these are the shades that didn't make it into the original Jaclyn Hill and Morphe palette. So for me, I want to see if there are any kind of similar shades within each of the vaults that are comparable to the shades that are in the Morphe Jaclyn Hill palette. Angela Bright came up with a really awesome idea of swatching the similar shades that she can find in the vault versus the Jaclyn Hill palette, like within each of the vaults. So that's what I'm going to do as well today. So I'll leave her channel listed down below if you wanted to go check out her video, but let's just jump right into the swatches. The first shade we have here is Lolly. The next shade is Rush. We have On Camera. Next is Boom. We have Alert, Bomb Ass, Siren, Mugshot, and Secret. So these are the shades here. So looking at the Jaclyn Hill Morphe palette, the closest shade that I can see that is maybe similar is the shade Sissy. So this is Sissy here comparing with Lolly. Now Lolly is definitely more of a kind of richer, warmer kind of red, bit more red toned, where Lolly is a little bit more of a pinky color. Very similar though, they definitely both still have that kind of gold reflect to them. Now Rush is a bit of a unique shade. There's nothing really super similar, but I think that maybe Butter might be a similar-ish shade. Look, they're similar but not exactly the same. Obviously Rush is just a little bit more warmer and has a bit more of an orange tone to it. On camera there's nothing that's really that kind of like orangey gold, but this is Queen. Sorry to flip you off, but this is Queen next to it, so you can kind of see the difference. So obviously Queen is more of that kind of true kind of antique gold, whereas On Camera is definitely that more kind of warmy orangey gold. The closest shade that I can see for a comparison is Firework from the Jaclyn Hill palette with comparison to Boom. So that's them there. Look, they're very similar. Like if you had one of them on the eyes, like you could totally create the exact same look using that shade and the exact same look using that shade, like so similar. Firework is maybe a little bit more red, whereas Boom is a little bit more kind of orangey maybe. But they're very similar. Now Alert is very unique. There's nothing that is that kind of really orange shade within the original Jaclyn Hill palette, so there's nothing that's really a dupe for that one. I'll swatch Cranberry next to it so you can see the difference between them. So that's cranberry there. So cranberry is definitely darker and a more of a cranberry shade, whereas Bomb Ass is a little bit more of that fiery pink shade. Comparing Siren, I think Jax is a close like look. That's Siren and then Jax. They're very similar. I've just done a little bit more on Siren. Maybe Jax is a little bit more red, but they're very, very similar. Now Pukey is maybe the next kind of most similar to Mugshot. So that's Pukey there, but Pukey is definitely more of that greeny kind of pukey brown, whereas Mugshot is a little bit more of a warm earthy brown. Now for Framed and Secret, I'm going to pop Chip in the middle here. So they're kind of that. So Chip is probably the most similar to those shades, but it's definitely more of a cool tone, like charcoaly brown. Maybe I put Mocha on the end as well as a comparison. Okay, so maybe Mocha and Secret are the most similar, but again, Mocha is a little bit more cool than Secret. Secret is definitely that kind of warm, rich chocolate brown. So those are all the shades comparing between the Jaclyn Hill original palette and the Armed and Gorgeous palette, and I hope it was helpful. So as you can see from the swatches, there are a few similar shades that I think you can create comparable looks with. As far as the swatches goes, the shimmers were absolutely beautiful. They swatched so well, and I'm really impressed with them. The mattes, not that great. I mean, mattes don't really generally swatch very well to begin with, but I found that the shades within the Ring the Alarm palette to be a little bit kind of chalky and dry. So that's kind of my thoughts on like swatches. Now, as far as the palette goes, there is very, very little fallout. The only shade that had a lot of fallout was Siren out of this palette, but all the other shades that I used, I had very, very little fallout, if any, which is super impressive. But I'm going to jump right into the two looks now so you can see how the shadows perform on the eyes. We'll come back at the end and I'll give you my final thoughts and wrap up on the Ring the Alarm palette. So guys, for our first initial shade, I'm taking the shade Rush and I'm just blending that in through my crease as our initial transition shade. This is just with a large fluffy brush. I will leave all the brushes listed down below if you wanted to check them out, but just continuing to build up that color until I'm happy with how smoky it is. I'm taking the same shade Rush just on a slightly more tapered blending brush and just running that along my lower lash line before moving in to Mugshot. I'm taking this again on a tapered blending brush and I'm really focusing this on the outer corner of my eyes, and then just packing it in throughout the crease as well. And again, just going in and building that up until I've got the desired intensity that I want. I love this brush. It blends out these shadows so well. I'm going to continue to smoke out the lower lash line with Mugshot as well. Next up, I'm moving on to the shade Secret just with a small pencil brush, and I'm really focusing this one on my outer corner, just packing it on and then dragging what I've got remaining under my lower lash line as well, and then going in with that original blending brush just to blend it all out and make sure there's no harsh lines. Then I'm going to go in with my MAC Pro Longwear Concealer and a really small brush. This one is from Morphe, and I'm just going to begin to cut my crease out. Guys, cutting your crease is a very tricky technique, so just take your time, little strokes, don't go in like with a huge amount all at once. Just take your time and make sure you find the right brush that works for you. Again, I'll leave all the brushes listed down below that I use. Then I'm going to take a mixture of Rush and Mugshot. I'm just really going to blend that over the edge of the concealer so we have a nice kind of seamless ombre effect from the concealer through to the outer crease. Next up, we're going to move on to the lid shade, and I'm going to apply a little bit of glitter glue. This is from Too Faced. I'm just going to tap that over our lid space area so the next shade that we use has something to really stick onto. The shade we're going to go in with is On Camera. It's a beautiful gold shade. I'm just going to go in with a flat brush and pack that over the lid area. And to really bring this look to life, I'm taking this shade from the Jaclyn Hill Morphe original palette, and I'm just going to be running that along the kind of crease portion of the cut crease so it's a little bit lighter than the rest of the lid shade. I just feel like this creates a really nice transition between the cut crease, and I love the shades together. And then I'm going to go back in with a mixture of Mugshot and Rush to really blend out the edges of where On Camera meets that outer corner. And then I'm just going to go with a tiny little bit more Rush with that original blending brush that we used to really smoke out the edges. We're going to finish off the eyes with a bit of mascara and also lashes. I'm using the Vixen lashes from Socialize, and I'm just going to apply then. We're going to move straight on to lips. I'm going to be taking the Anastasia Beverly Hills liquid lipstick in the shade Stripped, and I'm just going to apply that and then top it off with a little bit of gloss. This is from Rimmel. I'll leave all the names of the products listed down below if you're interested, and that is the first look. So for look 2, guys, we are starting off with the shade Rush, and I'm using that on a big fluffy brush and just blending that in throughout my crease. I'm not being too precise with the shade whatsoever, just kind of smacking it in throughout the crease as a transition for the rest of the shades to build on top of. Next shade we're going in with is Siren, and I'm taking this on a more kind of bullet, more dense packing brush, if you will, and I'm just really placing that in throughout the crease and really building and packing on that pigment. And once I'm happy with how deep that shade is, I'm just going to blend out the edges so it blends in nicely with that orange Rush shade. I did find this shade was a little bit difficult to blend out, so I just had to kind of really work at it. I did find that this shade got a bit patchy, especially along that outer edge of my eye. I felt like it lost a little bit of the pigment, so I just went back in with that same shade to really build on and pack over that little kind of patch that blobbed off. Next up, we're going in the shade Framed, which is a really deep purpley kind of shadow, and I'm packing that with a pencil brush just on the outer kind of portion of my eye and my inner corner of my eyes to kind of create this deepening up of those edges to pull together this spotlight look that I have in mind. And then I'm just going to lightly buff out those edges as well so everything is smooth and seamless. And then I'm going to move on to cut the crease just using my MAC Pro Longwear concealer and a flat brush to carve out the crease. This is just going to be a kind of cut halo eye, if you will. So yeah, just using that concealer to cut out that middle portion of the spotlight. And then once I'm happy with the shape and how everything's looking, I'm just going to use my finger to kind of blot out the edges so there's not such like a harsh line of concealer. To blend out the concealer, I'm going to take Siren again. I'm just going to pack that on the outer kind of corner and inner portion of the eye where the concealer is to blend it out. And then I'm going to go back in with Framed, and I'm going to kind of deepen up those inner and outer corners again. Now, I did find that for some reason these kind of purpley dark shades really kind of clung on to the concealer and created like this dark line where the concealer and those shadows met. I have no idea what the go was with that, but you'll see it a little bit further on in the video. Now for our spotlight look of the eye, I'm taking the shade Boom, and I'm just going to place that on the lower portion of this kind of cut spotlight area, just along the lower lash line, kind of blending it upwards towards where that cut is in the crease area. I'm going to top the top section off with the shade Lolly just to create a little bit of a gradient between the colors. Now as that concealer and I've been playing around with this other shadow, you can start to see that line of demarcation between where the shadows have become a dark and kind of patchy along that line where the concealer is. I'm going to try and fix this shade, so I really went in with a pencil brush and really buffed back and forth over that dark line that was happening, but it really wasn't working, so I just had to go in with the shade down here from the Jaclyn Hill original palette to help to try and cover it up. So I just went in and really tried to blend over those harsh lines that was caused by that concealer and just kind of topped it off with a little bit more of Lolly and Boom to kind of cover it up, if you will. We're going to move straight onto the lower lash line. I'm taking Rush again just on a fluffy brush and blending that along the lower lash line, really kind of going hard with this, blending it right down to kind of my first bag line, if you will. Then we're taking the shade Frame and we're just going to buff that along the lower lash line as well, just on the inner and outer portions of the lower lash line to really emphasize this halo look. And then we're going to go back in with that dark brown shade from the Jaclyn Hill Morphe palette just to stamp on that inner and outer portion as well to define the lower lash line. Then I'm taking the shade Lolly and I'm just packing that on the center portion of that lower lash line to match that halo look that we've going on, and then just slightly blending out those edges. We have applied lashes and mascara and a little bit of eyeliner. Applied my two favorite mascaras to my top and bottom lashes, and then went in with Cocoa Lashes Demi G lashes with just some lash glue and some tweezers. I'm highlighting with Champagne Pop, and I'm just doing my inner corner and also my brow bones. And then for lips, we are using the shade Celebrity Skin from Jeffree Star Cosmetics and applying that to my lips. And then I'm applying a little bit of gloss over the top. This is the Rimmel Oh My Gloss in the shade Love Bug. And then that is the finished second look, guys. Again, I will leave all the rest of the face products listed down below if you're interested. Okay guys, so those are the two looks that I created using the Ring the Alarm palette. So let's get into the wrap up of this palette. Now, do I think that this is worth the money? Yes, for the $23 that this palette is individually, I do think the palette is worth it. Are there some issues with the palette? Yes. For me, the shade Siren is just like a no-go. I did not like how it blended. It became patchy on my outer corner of my eye and I had such a hard time building up the color. I felt like I was getting a bit of a subculture flashback where you apply the pigment and then it just kind of disappeared, and it's only really just in this outer corner of my eye. I did have to go in with the original Jaclyn Hill palette, which you would have seen, to kind of fix that up basically and apply a darker color onto it, because Secret and Framed were just not dark enough to cover up the mistakes that Siren kind of left behind. For me, this palette isn't an individual palette that you can get an entire look created with. As you would have seen in the first look that I did have to dip into the original Jaclyn Hill palette to kind of finish off the look, and for today's highlight, my inner corner of my brow bone, I did have to use Champagne Pop as well. So it's not a complete palette. I just don't want people to go in and thinking that this palette is a one and done palette. You'll create heaps of different looks using it. You have to think of these palettes as additions to the Jaclyn Hill palette, and that's how I'm kind of taking it. You're not going to get everything done with this palette. Like I said, for me, there's not enough kind of deepening up shades in this palette, and the transition shades are very similar. Rush and Alert are very similar, Alert just being slightly more kind of orange, and Siren and Framed are very similar as well, but Framed is much better in my opinion than Siren. I'd kind of skip out on Siren. I don't think it's a very good shade. As an addition to the original Jaclyn Hill Morphe palette, I do think that it is a good palette. For me, the construction of the Vault palettes was to kind of like group like colors together, not to necessarily create a cohesive like one and done palette. Now, I did have a bit of a struggle with this palette when it came to this look here. You would have seen that you could just see a deviation where the concealer got darker on the edges where it was applied, so it did make blending out that line really hard. It like oxidized on the area just where the concealer finished, which I did find that the Subculture palette did that as well for me. So I'm not a fan of that. That's kind of my one gripe aside from Siren, that concealer oxidized in that area, and it just meant that I had to go in with another shade from the Jaclyn Hill original palette to try and salvage this look. So guys, that was it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe down below so you don't miss out on any of my other Vault collection videos. I hope you have a fantastic rest of the week, and I'll see you all in my next video. Mwah! Bye guys.